Hey all, so we are just starting our Netdata Office Hours episode 11. As usual, we'll give just a couple of minutes before we start the session, so we'll be waiting for more people to join, so stay connected and we'll soon kick this off. So I think we should be good to kickstart this. We'll be just doing the initial kind of set the scene for this office hours episode. Let me start sharing my screen. Should be live. So, for this session, we are going to focus on the spotlight on news on our alerts domain, and that's why we also have Satya here with me, who has been driving some key initiatives, let's say, on this domain that you hopefully have. You're expecting them, and hopefully will meet some of your needs. And then take a peek on what we are cooking, let's say, on the oven for the upcoming features and upcoming work that we have. The usual agenda, this intro, the spotlight, then we'll have, of course, an open slot for questions that people can share on the chat, and then a small share of questions and feedback that were raised by the community on multiple places where the community can interact with us. So just sharing some things that could be also interesting for some people to know. So also on the spotlight, there's just one additional thing that it's worth mentioning. It was not part of the title, but I think it's still a very good achievement from our side. So I'm not sure if you guys remember, we did the Netdata data source plugin some months back, and this was an unsigned plugin. So if you wanted to deploy it, if you wanted to run it, you'll need to go to some hassle about changing some settings on Grafana to be able to run it and to have it as a data source. So we've been able to complete the commercials and the review cycles with Grafana. So the Netdata Grafana data source plugin is now live on the marketplace. You can see it on Grafana website on the plugins section, and it should also be available for you on Grafana Cloud if you want to install this data source immediately from the offerings that are on Grafana Cloud. So hopefully this will start to unblock some of you to be able to use this, because I know some people mentioned about some restrictions about running unsigned plugins. So this is an initial step to unblock this to more users. And our GitHub repo for the Netdata Grafana data source plugin is open for feedback or requests. There's still already a couple of few things there, and some things that we have plans to work on in the future. So any feedback, any requests, feel free to share, and give it a go, because I think it's really awesome to be able to unblock Netdata collectors in Grafana. So it's a way you can get both of the best of both worlds through that. So this is just a small share, and probably we can jump straight to the next topic. So I'll pass the word to Satya, so he can start guiding us on the latest things that is been bleeding. Welcome, Satya.
Yeah, we've been speaking for quite some time on the Alert Configuration Manager. We have some good news. We are finally ready to release this, hopefully tomorrow, but latest on Friday morning. So the Alert Configuration Manager on the phase one will allow you to create new alerts from every single chart. So you don't need to move to a different tab. We've not tried to add any overheads on how you can create alerts, but on your dashboard, on the metrics tab, every single chart going forward will have the ability for you to create new alerts. Without any further ado, let me try and share a demo, a quick demo on how this looks. Of course, we'll be open for feedback, positive or negative, hopefully all positive. But yeah, I mean, let me quickly share my screen and take you through what we have right now. Just a minute. Yeah, just a minute. The sharing doesn't seem to be working. Just give me a moment, guys. Okay.
You're now live, Satya, on stream.
Perfect. So here I am on our testing environment because it's not yet out in production. So quickly showing you how the dashboard looks. So when we go to the metrics tab, now every single chart, as you can see, has this new icon. We call it the alert icon. You can click on it and it opens up a model for you to start creating an alert. I've just taken a sample chart here, which is net.net. It could be anything else, but in principle, when I click on it, it opens a model which then presents you already with a default alert configuration for this specific chart. As you can see, it is a threshold alert. It has some parameters set, which right on the right hand side, as you can see, it's a configuration that you would need to copy and paste on your agent. So by default,
Satya, just one small interruption. Could you zoom in just a bit, maybe
Yeah.
plus 20%, just to be a bit more readable for the people?
This is better.
Yeah, I think it's slightly better. Yeah, we can read the labels. Cool.
Okay. Let me keep it at this. Okay, so as you can see, we have an alert configuration that comes out by default. So what we set is we take an average of the last 5 minutes, evaluate the alert every 60 seconds, and set a critical or a warning alert if the average over the last 5 minutes went above 75. In this case, it would be an average, so above 75 or 85. This is a default configuration, but then you have the ability to change whatever parameters that you need. So in the first place, there is now the option of you creating an alert based on standard thresholds on values, or a variance based configuration which uses standard deviation. You could also, for example, select the coefficient of variation or other variance-based alerts. And then there's also an option to choose the anomaly-based alerts. So if you want to create an alert based on the anomaly rate of the specific metric, which we collect it anyways every second, this is also possible. So you could enable an alert using anomalies. Now, just getting to the sections, the first section by default, as you can see, is mapping to the lookup that we have on our alert configuration or this specific line. It sets it to the average over the last 5 minutes on all dimensions, and this is a sum of all the dimensions put together. So in this case, it is sent and received. So it would actually sum this, but you could, for example, do it for each of these dimensions or any of the selections. So you can select what you want. We also have advanced option which allows you to filter this alert based on, do you want it on specific nodes? So for example, if you're creating your alerts on a parent agent, you could then say, okay, this alert, I only want it on one of my child nodes. And you could either select them here, but you could also, for example, create a wildcard. So if you have something that is Kubernetes star, it would tell you exactly which hosts under your parent agent this alert would be applicable for. Similarly, we also now support filtering it out based on instances or charts, as we call it. So you could select which charts this alert is applicable for. So in this case, it says ETH0. It could be anything else. And then, of course, we still support the wildcards. So I could say anything that is ETH star, for example. We also support chart labels. As you know, all these capabilities already exist on the agent. We're now just providing this option to create these alerts in a much intuitive way from the UI. You could select the chart labels. So for example, I could say, if the device is ETH0, I would want to create those alerts in there. You could also choose the operating systems. But in principle, every single option or most of the options that are being actively used on the agent for creating alerts are all available here. You could also, over and above the lookup, which is the database lookup for you to get the values to alert on, you could also add a formula. So for example, I have a DB lookup that's coming in, which gives me a certain value, but you want to do some custom formula on top of it. We have the calc field, as you know. So I can just say $this star 100, for example. This will give you a formula that you can add over and above the DB lookup. Again, nothing new. It's all available on the agent configurations anyways. And now for the most important section of the configuration is to define your thresholds. So you could, of course, choose whether you want the threshold above or below. You can choose the values for critical and for warning. And you can also choose what is the interval that you want to run this alert. It could be by default, as you can see, 60 seconds. You could also change that to, for example, every 10 minutes. You don't want it to be as frequent. But the more important thing is the concept of recovery threshold. So you could set a different threshold to recover from critical or from warning than what is mentioned as the alert when it is escalating. So for example, I can say, yeah, create an alert that goes from warning to critical or from clear to critical when it reaches 85, whatever the units, right? Assuming this is percentage, when it goes beyond 85%, but then stay on critical until or unless the value or the percentage falls below 75. So this is a recovery threshold stuff. We support this on the agent, but it's quite complex to understand in the way it is shown because we use in the expression the ternary operator, which is not always very easy to understand, but I think it's much more easier here. So you could set the recovery thresholds. You also have the capability of delaying notifications for whatever reason you want to say, right? I mean, this is to basically handle these flip-flop situations where an alert keeps switching between two states and you don't want it to flip and kind of burst your notification mechanism. So you could set a delay which says, okay, any escalation that happens from, let's say, clear to warning or warning to critical, you want to delay that by let's say 15 seconds, and then you can add a multiplier. So if this happens the first time, you delay it by 15 seconds. If it happens the second time, you make it 30 seconds. If it happens the third time, you make it 60 seconds, etc. Whatever. And you could do that in both the directions for escalation and de-escalation. And you can obviously also set the maximum delay. So again, I think I'm going into a little bit more details, although all of these exist on the agent. And the reason being, we've received quite a few queries from most of our users who ask about some of these options and how it's not intuitive. So hopefully this does the key. There are also some agent-specific options which obviously do not apply to the notifications or the alerts that are handled on the cloud, but you could still create these configurations. For example, do you want to repeat the alert notifications if it is a warning or a critical every certain amount of time or a certain frequency? You could also use the send to option, which basically allows you to set roles to users who would receive the alert notifications. As you know, all of these don't exist on the cloud. Of course, we have our own role-based access on the cloud, but we don't necessarily tag that to the alerts. So there are some agent-specific options. So this is more so for backward compatibility. So anyone who's creating an alert also has all the options that's available on the agent. The last section is, of course, you setting a description. There is one by default, but of course, right, you would rather modify this and create a more meaningful version of this. So let's call it 5-minute average of work traffic, for example, whatever. And then, of course, the alert summary, in case you want a different subject title to your notifications, you could use that. You could essentially use any of the variables that we support. It could be host label, it could be chart labels, it could be any of those. So in principle, now as you see, the right-hand side of the screen dynamically updates the configuration. Everything that you enter in is here. All you need to do is now copy this, go to your agent, either add this to an existing health configuration file that is under health.d, or create a new custom file where you could actually populate all your alerts. So you could say all the custom alerts that you create goes into a new file, and all that you need to do is copy from here and paste it there and reload health. So as you know, we have this Netdata CLI, which allows you to reload health without restarting the Netdata agent. So yeah, the first phase of the alert configuration manager allows you to create an alerts configuration, which you still need to manually copy and and configure it on the agent. The phase 2 and phase 3 will be more to do with also validate this. So once the configuration is created, you will be able to validate the alert right here. It is also going to show you, for example, on this chart on top, based on your given alert configuration, where the alerts would have triggered or cleared. So you would be very easily able to see if my alerts configuration makes sense based on my historical data. And the phase 3, as I mentioned, will be to push the configuration straight to the agent from the UI. But this phase 1 will only allow you to create the alert configuration in a more intuitive way from the UI and copy and configure it on the agent. So this is basically what I had for the alerts configuration. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
There was one question that you kind of already answered with this last remark about the phases, like phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So it was about the deployment of these to the nodes, so the users will not need to configure this manually. So as you mentioned, users will need to copy for now this from the UI, and then place it on the health config of the agent, a new file or an existing file, depending how you want to manage that. And there's also the option, if you use some CI/CD tools to deploy your agents, to incorporate that as part of your CI/CD tools until we get this full flow from the UI to the agents themselves. So Let's see if there's any more questions about the alert configuration manager. We'll still have a slot for questions afterwards. So if you're not able to raise your question at the moment, we can answer it after. Sure, I think you can proceed. So I'll probably sorry, there's one that came now. So in later phases, as well as showing which time periods will have alerted cleared, will it also show the threshold so we can see how close things look?
Yes, indeed. So that's the idea. So the thresholds that you choose, we want to kind of give you a visual experience on whether these thresholds are good enough for you. So, for example, if you're setting a CPU utilization threshold to 75%, and a majority of the times, your infrastructure runs on such a CPU load, you will be able to see on this chart that is on the screen that your thresholds will result in the alert being raised for 75 or 80% of the times. So you can see that visually. So it makes it much easier for you to kind of tweak your threshold to make more sense.
Awesome. Yeah, it's exactly what the user was expecting. So good news. So probably instead of switching now with the screens, I think Satya can proceed with the next demo. So it's about the mobile app. So yeah, I think we already spoke about this in the past on other office hours. So yeah, please go ahead, Satya.
Yeah, let me share my screen again because I need to stream from my mobile now. Just give me a moment, guys. Also, it might look a little weird. Because I will be.
While you prepare that, let me answer just another question. So there was a question also about these alert stages being rolled to other files, such updated configs, such as vnodes from the GUI. So yeah, we intend to bring more configurations to be done from the UI. Alerts is probably the initial one that we'll be doing. We want to allow configuration of collectors, of other integrations on the agent, streaming. So we'll plan to roll this out to more configurations. So you could start doing things from the UI instead of going to the configuration files. So yeah. Do you want me to put your screen to the display?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now. Okay, perfect. So this is my screen. Don't look at other stuff. I don't know what it is. I've not cleared it before this demo. Let me quickly open the Netdata app. Of course, I've already signed in, which is something I could have left for this. So in principle, anyone who has a Netdata Cloud account, who's signed up to Netdata Cloud, will be able to log in to the mobile app, either by entering the email address and verifying the email on your device, or by scanning a QR code. So we've also introduced the QR code ability on the Netdata UI, which will allow you to just scan the QR code and boom, you're right in without needing to validate or verifying through your email. Now, this is our home screen, which will give you a list of all the spaces that you are on. Of course, since I have tens of spaces, I'm assuming this will not be a real life scenario for most of our users. So hopefully it's a couple of spaces or a few spaces, a handful of spaces. But as you can see, the home screen kind of shows you which spaces you are part of and how many notifications, how many unread notifications you have. As you can see, in my case, I have more than 4,000 notifications, which is only because we are running some test samples in there which create some of these alerts. You should not be alarmed by these numbers. I'm sure it should not be similar in your case. So it's going to give you a list of all the spaces you're on. And the Netdata app, the mobile app, is only available on subscribed spaces. So anyone who's on the business plan, for example. So as you can see, the first 4 spaces are on a paid plan, but the remaining are not. So if I try to look at the notifications on these spaces, it gives you a pop-up that these spaces are not available. Of course, you're still more than, I mean, you're allowed to download the app and log in. You will just not be able to see the notifications. Now, quickly going through what the app provides. Let me open the Netdata demo space, for example. When you open or when you click on one of the spaces, it gives you a list of all your notifications that you have received since you have signed in, right? And again, to reiterate, this is a notifications app. It's not an alerts app. So it's not going to give you a view of how many alerts are active at this point in time, but it will more act like an event log of all the alerts that have been raised since you have signed up or signed into the app. So as you can see here, there have been various clear notifications that were sent to you. There are also certain warnings. So in principle, if you want to see, for example, the history of your alerts, you could, for example, just look at you could look at all the alerts that what just happened. Just a minute. Yeah. So if you wanted to look at, my phone seems to be struggling. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So for example, I want to look at all the alerts that are Nginx last collected seconds. You could, in principle, filter them out by simply searching. You could also, filter them out by various other parameters. I'll quickly run you through it. Just a minute. So as you can see, we have various filtering options. So not only do you receive alert notifications, but also reachability notifications. So if any of your node agents went down or they came back, the reachability notifications exist. On the Netdata demo space, I don't have any reachability notifications, but in principle, I could say, okay, just give me a list of all the critical notifications that I've received, and it's going to be able to do that for you. The more important aspect that will be kind of relevant is, even though an alert is critical, as you can see, any new alert or any new notification that you received will give you a kind of a pop-up to say, get to the top of the place and you can see the latest one. Of course, if it still falls into the filtering criteria. But customization becomes extremely important when you're trying to kind of look at alerts on your mobile device. For example, this is a critical alert based on how the alert was defined, but maybe depending on a maintenance window or any of the actions, you would want to change the severity of this and not see it, for example. So you could change the priority. It does not change the alerts severity. It will still be critical, but I could, on your mobile device, change this priority to medium or, so for example, instead of high, let me mark it medium priority or even mark it low priority. And I can also define how the notifications work based on priority. So on my settings, and I can also set whether I want this for all the nodes in the space or only on the current selection of nodes for this alert. So let me choose this for all the nodes in the space. You can then go to the settings panel and define for the various priorities that we have. So for example, for low priority, I don't have anything, but let's say for high priority, I want to have the banner, vibration and sound. For medium priority, I only want the vibration and the banner, for example. And for low priority, I get nothing. So it also allows you to kind of customize how you look at alerts and whether you should be alarmed or notified when you're in the middle of your sleep at 3 a.m., for example. So yeah, I mean, this is how you can filter out stuff, change priorities. You could also, for example, mark something explicitly as read, or you could mark something as unread. So you would want to, kind of take a look at it at a later point in time. So if I click on mark all as read, everything is marked as red. As you can see, unread is 0. I will only mark this one thing. So at a later point in time, I can go and look at this. Additionally, okay, let me get rid of the filter. Okay, thing. You also receive this bell icon to show you all the new notifications you've received since you have started the new session. So you can see what notifications have arrived, click on them, even change spaces. So for example, I'm right now on the Netdata demo space, but I could switch to the Netdata cloud space by clicking on the notifications you have in there. You could also, let me go back to Netdata demo. It does not only give you a high level information, you can actually click on one of these and open the alert on your browser or in app using the web view. Of course, it's not going to be as grand as what you would see on the app, but still, it is good enough. It kind of gives you the details of the alert, what happened, when was it triggered, some idea of how the alert has been configured, the configuration summary, and of course also how you could troubleshoot this scenario. So all of this information exists. Now, quickly moving to the last, most important aspect of the app is for you to be able to silence notifications. So you can, based on maintenance windows, define at a space level, and we only allow now silencing at the space level for this initial release. So you could say, because I have a maintenance window planned on a majority of my nodes in a certain space, I would want to silence all the notifications on the space either forever, or I can set a timer on when you want this to be enabled. Once this is done, and you go back to the home page, it'll also inform you that this specific space has been silenced, so you don't forget it after your maintenance window. Even when you click on it, there's going to be a pop-up which says this space has been silenced. So if you want to change it, you should go ahead and change it. Yeah, it gives you various options to kind of manage your maintenance windows, especially if you intend to use the mobile app as your primary notification integration. You will still be receiving notifications in other places. So, for example, if you have Slack integration enabled or email, you might still be receiving those. And if you want to silence those, you will still need to use the silence manager on our Netdata app, on the web app. But at least for the mobile app, given that sometimes since it's a personal device, you don't want to be disturbed at all times, and also from a battery point of view, you don't want to drain your battery while you are traveling. We wanted to give some additional capabilities right on the app. So I think these were some of the key functionalities that we have. Of course, just to show you, it's more a coolness factor. I kind of like both the themes. I would like to show you can also change the theme from a night theme to a day theme. If not, it follows the theme of your operating system. I personally prefer the night mode, but yeah, you have an option if you are not one of those who likes black. Yeah, that's what we have, and we've already kind of started our release process. We're working with the Google and the iOS folks. We've kind of started publishing this, but there is quite a long verification process that happens. Verification of the app, verification of other entities, and logistics associated with it. So hopefully somewhere next week, we should be able to give you some good news on the app being available. But it's coming, and it's coming rather pretty quick. So yeah, that's basically what I had.
Thanks, Satyan. Great demo of this amazing work that was done. So there were two questions. So one was about where can I find the app. So as you mentioned, this is currently on the review process with Apple Store and Google Play. And there's actually just a question a bit related to that the user didn't know there was a Netdata mobile app. So when you check Play Store, it said it was not compatible with Android 14. So if you look at it now, there should be some Netdata apps there, but they're not the official Netdata apps. So some developer, some person decided to create their own apps to try to expose some functionalities through it. So these apps that you find at the moment are not the Netdata official app. So this is the process that Satya said we are running now, and hopefully next week we'll have some more news on it. So yeah, if you find something there, it's not this mobile app.
Yeah, the ones that are on these Play stores are kind of compatible only with the Netdata agent and not the cloud. And yeah, we are happy that some of our users have actually created these app. Uh, but yeah, right now I don't think it's compatible with many Android and even on the iOS, for example, there is an app that's available. At least I faced an issue on the latest iOS releases that it didn't work. But yeah, you don't need to worry about this. Very soon you'll have the official Netdata app making it out to the stores.
Okay, cool. Let's just see before we go to the next thing if there's any more questions popping up about the Netdata notification mobile app. Seems nothing immediate. So if something pops up, we'll pick it up and discuss it on the slot we have for that. So let me get back to the presentation. So this was the last news and great news on the alerts domain, as you can see. So now it's just a brief share, just you guys have a kind of expectation what we are working on at the moment. This, of course, some things of this are in parallel. Not sure yet on the release date we'll have, but for sure some of this stuff will come up on the next office hours session to either demo it to you, mention some beta access to them if we have this on some of them. But yeah, in summary, we are working on our homepage revamp. So we know the homepage we have at the moment is showing some information, some stats of your space. But in terms of monitoring and troubleshooting, there's still quite some things missing. So we are doing a full revamp of this homepage, and hopefully soon we'll have some news to share on this one. As you know, we did the work for system journal log integration, and we started already working on some logging integration for logs. So similar to what we are doing with system journal, we are going to create an integration to grab to use Loki as a log source for bringing these logs to the dashboard, like we do for system journal. Based on some user feedback and user requests, we are improving our user authentication. So we are starting with Okta single sign-on. I know there's also requests about the managing of users and Active Directory. This probably will come on a later stage. We are focusing first on the single sign-on efforts for authenticate users on Netdata Cloud. We are working also on our custom dashboards revamp. So we are creating the engine to support the new custom dashboards that we have planned to bring out. And we'll, of course, start slowly rolling this out to the existing dashboards that are there, and then fully revamp the existing dashboard functionality that is there for you to customize dashboards. And the two last things is some work that is being done for now specific on the agent. So we are introducing some auditing of incoming requests to the agent. So to understand which user, what role the user is doing, because as we mentioned, functions is a feature that is sensitive in some cases on some functions. So knowing the role of the user will also help us kind of understand if the user can execute that function or not. So some auditing and some control of who's accessing the APIs on the agent. And last is about some transaction progress feedback. So there's some requests that Cloud makes or the UI makes that might take some time to complete. Like if you're running the anomaly rate or the anomaly detection for a big space with a lot of metrics and a lot of nodes, this might take some time. And currently the UI is just kind of in an endless loop showing that something is happening. but we are making changes on the agent, so will be able to report progress. This will be in two things, even for query to the system journal log. You can see like a progress bar. We will be able to see a progress bar of what's happening and what's the state of completing the request. So you can understand there's still work happening. It's not a timeout. So you better understand what's what the UI and what the system is doing. So this will hopefully also help improving the user experience when using the UI. So yeah, this is a short list. Of course, there's more things on our plate to think about, but this is kind of the immediate things we are working at the moment. So before going to the last steps, just check if there's any questions, anything that the community would like to bring for us to consider. Okay, seems we kind of tackle them throughout the conversation. Okay, cool. So just, of course, thank you for all the hard work. Yeah, good feedback. So probably to wrap up then the office hours, just the last thing as usual is the questions and the feedback we got from community. So the first one was about some user not being able to see alerts on systemd unit state else checks. So the reason for this is by default, these are disabled because we got some feedbacks on users saying that there were a lot of false positives being reported by this. So if you want to have them enabled, you just need to remove the module ignore wildcard, and then they will start to come. And then, of course, you can enable and disable them per system unit basis, so you can configure them as you want for which system units you want. And then just a side note, I'm not sure if you guys know, but there's a function that is a systemd list units that you can also use to have in runtime information about the systemd units, their active state, description, if they're enabled or not, and more information. So besides the alerts, even on the UI, you can see some of the status of the systemd units. There was also a report about not being possible to send SMS via the Amazon SNS integration that we did recently. So here there are 2 points of attention. So we had an issue because we were sending the same payload for SMS, for emails and HTTP. So the same payload was sent out to all of them. And for SMS, this was not working well. So we made an adaptation to say for SMS, we'll have a specific payload to be able to send SMS properly and correctly. But there's a point of attention because Amazon put some spending limits on this Amazon SMS flow. So if you, for some reason, exceed this limit, you will need to ask Amazon to increase this limit, and of course, give answer some questions that they will ask you. So this could also be a point of attention for you to, if you're using this, and to try to know it. And then the last one is how to monitor cron on a host that is through the Docker Netdata container. And I say here cron or some other app. So the user was not being able to monitor or get some metrics from cron that was running on Docker. And the question was that there's a recommended way to set up this Docker Netdata container to monitor it. And there's the special flag that is the network mode host, where the container uses the host network namespace to auto-discover apps. So for this case, the user was using an old Docker Compose file. So if you're in a situation like this and you're using some old commands on your CI/CD tooling or some instrumentation that you have, you might need to update these commands and have the proper ones. So this is also something we saw on the community. So that's the last thing. So I think we can wrap it up here. Thanks for attending. Thanks, Satya, for the demos and guiding us through all this cool stuff that we have. And if there's nothing else, we can wrap it up here. Thank you, guys. See you then in after New Year. So for those that will not speak, have a great holiday season, and see you on the next office hours in January 2024.
Cheers. Happy holidays, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.